see a few new faces. And today is really exciting because we have some icebreaker speeches by some newer members. So to start off this meeting, let's say the mission statements. So can someone say that for us? Yes, Griffin?
We provide a supportive and positive learning experience in which members are empowered to develop communication and leadership skills, resulting in greater self-confidence and personal growth.
Thank you, Griffin. At this time, we'd like to welcome up our President, Tyler Chan, to the stage.
All right. So as Sarena said, this will be our meeting with all icebreakers, as in every single person that will be doing a prepared speech, this will be their first time presenting a speech here. So that's pretty cool. So without further ado, I'm actually going to introduce the Toastmaster today so we can get the meeting going. Bhanodai Pippala.
All right, thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, you guys. It's the first meeting after fall. It's not fall, can you believe it? What do you all love about fall? Personally, I love the fact that there's now pumpkin spice lattes, Halloween's coming up, meeting with family for Thanksgiving, but above all of that, what's more important than family, pumpkin spice lattes, and candy? Hearing you all speak at this awesome meeting, each and every single Monday, just to make it a little better. So today's meeting will feature 3 speakers, as Tyler said, giving their first ever speech. Icebreaker is essentially just a fancy way of saying their first ever speech. A typical Toastmasters meeting has 3 main sections. The first section is prepared speeches. The first aspect of the prepared speeches is that these individuals will give a 5 to 7 minute speech on a certain topic or objective based on the type of project that they're going forward to or looking forward to. The second section for a meeting is table topics. Table topics essentially examines your impromptu speaking skills just to see if whether or not you can do well for interviews, class presentations, or debates. And the last and third section of the meeting is our evaluations. The purpose of the evaluations is to see where you can improve as a speaker and what to examine for future speeches and other speaking engagements. Before starting the meeting itself, I'd like to actually introduce our report section. We have 3 reports today. The first section I'd like to introduce is our grammarian, Ubed. Do you mind standing up and just giving us a short summary of what you're going to look for today?
Right, so today I'm learning how to be grammarian. So the grammar includes like subject verb agreement, misuse verbs, improper grammar, and something like that.
Cool. Good job. We'll be looking forward to that, judging you all based on your grammar, seeing if you have run-on sentences. Now for a second report of the day, Devish Sharma, do you mind standing up and letting us know what in the world you're doing for Awe Counter?
I count the number of times you say Awe.
Basically, yeah, great job. So we'll also count other instances of so's, you likes, you knows, other types of filler words that you may have. So be on the lookout for that. He will judge you, like Ubed, throughout this meeting. Our third and final report for this meeting is our timer. Liana Johnson, do you mind standing up and letting us know what you're doing throughout this meeting?
Hi guys, I'm Liana. Today I'm just going to be making sure that you all are staying within your time range. I have these lovely timing cards here. So green means you've reached the minimum amount of minutes that you can stand up there and speak. Yellow is when you're halfway. And red is when you reach the maximum, but you do get a grace period of 30 seconds towards the end of it. Yeah. So
yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, question?
On the timing.
Yes.
So, there's been some discrepancies with
Yes.
the time frame for the icebreakers.
Yes.
I was told 3 to 5.
Go with 4 to 6 minutes.
Okay.
Go with 4 to 6 minutes. Perfect? Perfect, cool. And she'll raise the green, whatever the, sorry, I'm blanking out, the green color card when you actually reach the minimum, and it will change based on a certain subject or a certain section that we have the meeting on. So our table topics master and our general evaluator will certainly go through that. But for prepared speeches, each speech will be 4 to 6 minutes each. Cool. Awesome. Let's actually start with our prepared speeches for today. Our first speaker of the day will be examining her weaknesses in life and how she can get through those and fix those weaknesses. I'd like to introduce, for our first speech of the day, titled Blind Spots, Tirzah Moriarty.
Everybody has blind spots. Things that others can see about you, but that you may not be able to see about yourself. I know we've all got that one friend who just makes awful decisions, but when the consequences roll around, they actually blame everything but their own actions for what happens to them. Or like me, you may have a dog or a pet of some sort that chases its tail repeatedly and doesn't really have the foresight to see that they're never going to grasp a hold of their tail. Or you may have parents who've gotten on to you about, your grades or your studying habits, your partying habits, your relationships, something of this sort, something that they just deem unacceptable. And so, well, we're not here to talk about you guys today, we're here to talk about me, because this is my icebreaker speech after all. So this speech was prompted by a conversation that I recently had with my mother, and so she enlightened me as to some of my blind spots, which is always just fun to hear from your mother. So, without further ado, my first blind spot is that sometimes I tend to think that my moral plane can be better than your moral plane. Maybe that my agenda might be better than your agenda. So just to give you an example on that, in high school, my friend group was very selective, and it was kind of a house divided towards the end of high school. We had one part of the group that was deemed cool, and then I guess they self-deemed themselves cool, and then they deemed the other half of the group not very cool. And I was kind of neutral, and I was like, I think we're all cool. And so what the cool half of the group decided to do was just not invite the non-cool half to any of our parties. And so this made the non-cool half of the group really sad, as can be expected when, your whole friend group is doing something and you're not invited. So I tried to be the middleman. I'm a middle child, and so I've always been a mediator. And I went to the cool side of the group, and I suggested, perhaps, that we just invite the non-cool people and just be kind so that everyone is happy and in harmony and not in conflict. But the cool half of the group, they were like, no, we're not going to invite those non-cool girls because we don't enjoy hanging out with them, and they're annoying. And I was like, you guys are just mean. And so I went and told the non-cool half that I was just going to hang out with them because the other half of the group was just not being very nice. But anyways, I say this to say that, I was very frustrated with the cool half of the group, and I ranted to my mother about it on multiple occasions. And what she enlightened me to was the fact that maybe I'm viewing my agenda as better than their agenda. So their moral plane was that they want to spend time with people that they like, which in hindsight just makes a lot of sense. We don't want to hang out with someone who we don't like spending time with. That just makes sense. But my half, or I guess my train of thought, was that I want everyone to be included. I don't want to exclude anybody because that's just not a very nice thing to do. And really, I could make a good case that my agenda and my moral stance is better, but I'm a subjective judge, so I can't really do that. So I just thought that was some food for thought. So that was my first blind spot. And then my second blind spot would be that sometimes I think that people are placing expectations on myself, or on me, that they don't actually have of me. I'm actually placing expectations on myself and then projecting them onto other people. And so one example that my mom and I talked about was in high school. I went to high school in Ohio for the first half of high school because that's where I was raised. And I was a cheerleader, and I would like to think very popular, and which is dumb. But anyway, so I got into weight training, and I started to get really competitive with it. And just bear with me, folks. I squatted a lot, and my butt just started to get really toned, and people started to take notice. And for a while there, like the whole year, my butt was like the talk of the town in Kings Mills, Ohio. And so I do have a point, I promise. So, from that point on, after everyone kind of started talking about it, I thought that people had this expectation that my butt just looks really good every day. So I started to actually change my behavior and dressing in outfits that showcased my butt to change myself to my expectations of what I thought their expectations were, if that makes any sense. So here are my blind spots, basically. 1, sometimes I think that my moral plane is better than your moral plane, and that my standpoint is superior to yours. And 2, sometimes I think that you have expectations of me that you don't actually have. I just have them for myself. So I would encourage you all to get a trusted friend or relative, probably a friend would be better, and would hurt a little bit less, to tell you what your blind spots are, because you just can't see them sometimes. Or sometimes we all just tend to turn a blind eye to our blind spots. And so I would definitely encourage you all to be more self-aware and introspective, but if not, sometimes it just be like that. Thank you.
I've never heard of a speech using morality expectations through the vision of a butt. Great job. Interesting. I would say overall, Tirzah's speech was essentially a paradigm of what is typically a good icebreaker speech. The reason why they're all snapping, if you've never gone to a meeting before, is this is actually a word of the day. Typically, if you use the word of the day, such as paradigm, you essentially would snap at each and every single time that you do use that word. And Ubed will certainly take note of how many times that each person uses the word of the day. Cool. Our next speaker, but before we actually look into the next speaker, make sure you use the ballots for today and fill out a pro and con that you can see with Tirzah's speech. And I'll give you all 30 seconds to review that. And once you're done with writing down the pro and con, make sure to pass them down to the end of the rows and put them in the little black boxes. Sarena or SAA will certainly pick them up at the end.
For public service announcement, it's TIRZAH.
Is it the same as on the thing?
Yeah, on the agenda,
Yes.
on the agenda, it certainly spells out her name, everything that we're going to go through with the meeting. So
But it's correct on the agenda.
it should be.
Okay.
Yes, it is. Tirzah,
Yeah.
TIRZAH. Cool.
Yeah.
My name is on it.
I make sure, considering my name is Bhanodai, and people want to say Bhanodai, like they want me to die, like Bhanodai. So I try to make sure my name is also spelled correctly. So I'll look out for you too. Second icebreaker of the day, we'll be discussing why it is important to save money and how to develop habits in order to get that goal that you want to regarding saving money and building a bigger bank account. I'd like to introduce our second speaker of the day with the titled speech, The Importance of Saving Money for 4 to 6 minutes, Zain Charaniya.
is Zain, and I've been very, very fortunate to have grown up around a family of business owners. And as such, I've learned so many valuable financial lessons that otherwise I wouldn't have learned until maybe my 30s, 40s, 50s, or possibly ever. The most important financial lesson that I've learned in my lifetime is the importance of saving money. This is important for so many reasons, but I'm going to highlight 2 reasons why it's very, very important to save money. Reason number 1, it's important to build financial wealth for the future so that you can live more comfortably over a very long period of time. My parents came to this country when they were in their 30s and had no education and no money. They had to work minimum wage jobs, and within a couple of years, they had enough money to start their own business, which is powerful. They saved so much money that they could start their own business and make more money, which they then used, saved, and started another business and another business and another business until they found themselves with an empire of retail businesses. They lived absolutely minimally until they were able to live more comfortably than most other people in their age range. If you take a little bit out of your paycheck every single month and save it for the purpose of building wealth for the future, you'll be in so much better shape than the person next to you who makes the same amount of money as you but doesn't save it all for building wealth. And you don't need to be a business person or an entrepreneur to make an investment to turn your money into more money. Anybody can invest. If you take $600 a month out of your paycheck and put it into the S&P, which is basically an index of large and safe stocks, between the time that you start working and the time that you retire, you'll have accumulated about $1 million. $1 million that that person next to you who didn't save any money doesn't have. And that money is going to help you live more comfortably, help your kids, help future generations of your family. That's why it's important to build wealth for the future. The second reason why it's important to save money is financial security. Financial security is very, very important because you never know what's going to happen. Medical bills could come up, legal fees. You could have a kid. And those things are all very, very expensive. And so I know so many people that have had to sell their house, sell their car, go into massive debt to meet those obligations. And if you save a little bit every single month in order to keep for a rainy day fund, you won't have to sacrifice your current quality of life to meet those unexpected obligations. You won't have to change anything. Your family won't have to live a different way than they're currently living because you were prepared. You saved so that when shit hits the fan, you're ready. So now that we've talked about the 2 main reasons why we should save money, wealth building and financial security, I'm going to go into some tips on how you can be better savers. Tip number 1 is have a percentage of your income set that you'd like to save every month. I'd recommend about 25%. I'd say absolutely no less than 10%. And if you're somebody that wants to be a big entrepreneur and a 1%er, it's going to have to be a lot more than that, but I wouldn't really recommend that for most people. 25% I think is a very, very good number to save. And another tip that's going to help you save that percentage is to ask yourself before every single purchase, do I need this? Do I really, really want this? Because it's important to spend money on yourself. It's important to spend money on things that you need or on things that you really, really want because you work so hard to be able to do that. But if the answer to the question, do I need this or do I really, really want this is no, then that's an empty purchase. And you need to cut empty purchases out of your life immediately. Empty purchases, no matter how small, will add up. I'm sure you know if you work and you have a paycheck and you make small $2, $3, $4, $5 purchases and your paycheck's gone, small purchases absolutely add up. So it's very, very important to know which purchases are essential and which you can cut out of your life. A third tip to help you cut out those empty purchases are to have your savings money, to have your spending money in cash. So that every time you want to make a purchase, you can see how much money you have, you can see how much is going out of how much money you have, and it'll kind of tug at your heartstrings every time you detach a part of what you have in order to pay something. And so that will basically stop you from making a lot of empty purchases that you don't really need and that you're kind of going to forget about after it's done. So in conclusion, 2 main reasons why we should save money or to build wealth for the future and to be financially secure. And some tips to help you get there. Have a percentage of your income in mind set that you'd like to save every month. Have all your spending money in cash. Because, oh yeah, let me add to that point. Spending money with a credit card is very, very easy, and I know so many people that have gotten into so much debt because they've spent money with a credit card, which is money that you might not even have, and it's so easy to just swipe away, you won't even know what you're spending money on. So keeping all your money in cash is very important. And the last tip is to ask yourself if you really need or really, really want something. These lessons, I'm sure many, many people in their 40s and 50s really wish they would have known these things when they were as young as we are, because they'd be in so much better shape when they're 40 or 50 or 60 if they had started saving when they were 20 and first working. So I think it's a really, really powerful tool. I hope it'll help you guys out, and thank you for listening.
Really made me, in those 4 to 6 minutes, examine how many Frappuccinos I buy each month.
That's the goal.
That's a pretty empty purchase. Great job so far. Two very good icebreaker speeches. Again, make sure to fill out the second speaker ballot and give him one pro, one con, tear it out, and then pass it to the middle. I'll give you all 30 to 60 seconds to fill it all out. So everyone's ready. So our last speech for the first section of this meeting. This individual will be talking about what exactly entails success. I'd like to introduce our third and final speaker for 4 to 6 minutes, Walton Simmons, who will be giving a speech, The Common Denominator of Success.
It's Walton. Walton, sorry. Don't worry about it. I also did email him letting him know that I would be going, so that's my bad. Before I really dig into the meat of what I'm going to talk about, I think I'd be remiss. The title of the speech is, What is the Common Denominator of Success? But I think that digging into the how of something without digging into the why really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So the question I pose to y'all is, what do you want to be? What do you want to have? What do you want to do? Because if you know who you want to be, and you know what you want to do, and what you want to have, you have a very clear vision of what success is. I'm going to talk mostly about the middle piece, like the how you get there. But if you don't really examine what it is that you actually want on the other side, you're kind of shooting in the dark. You're just not doing, you're going along a path that takes you to an unknown destination. You wouldn't drive to school and go along, like just driving the car and see where it takes you. But we do that with life. So I encourage you to take some time and be self-reflective. So the common denominator of success, this speech was inspired to me by a book that I read. It's really short. It's like 20 pages. It's called The Common Denominator of Success. So I recommend you read it. But it's a very short thesis, and so I'll share the thesis with you, and I'll kind of dig into what it actually entails. But the common denominator of success is that successful people form the habit of doing the things unsuccessful people don't feel like doing. And so to dig into that a little bit, I think the most important part there, kind of the key phrase, is habit. Because what are habits? Habits are consistent and continual action that are done over time that we don't have to think about. So successful people form the habit of doing things unsuccessful people don't feel like doing. They're not really even thinking about it. I made a decision a couple of weeks ago that I was going to sell my iPhone and buy a flip phone because I got really sick of spending unnecessary time on social media, on my phone, on scrolling through ESPN. So I made the decision. I cut the cord, and actually just before, like right before, I went to the Verizon store, and the guy at the Verizon store was like, "Why are you doing that? Why would you get a flip phone? That's ridiculous." Which it is. It's completely ridiculous. But I know in my mind that the time that I am investing into my phone is so empty. It's like the empty purchases that Zain was talking about. Like these little empty deposits of time that we spend into stuff that doesn't really matter. It's adding no value into my life, reading the 7th mock draft of the 2020 NFL draft on WalterFootball.com. That adds no value to my life. Do I enjoy it? Yes, I do enjoy it because I like football. But that's not actually doing anything. And so that's a very small example of a habit that I've formed of just systematically cutting out of my life empty things, cutting empty purchases out.